Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to Heavyweight the Way In podcast. I'm your host, Latifa. I pray that all is going well with you all and that you're staying safe, healthy, blessed, and all that good stuff. So, I know that some of you are probably listening and watching me right now, thinking to yourself, sis, where have you been? Well, I am here to address that on today's episode. I know I've been MIA. However, I needed a turnaround in my way of thinking. I needed to hit the reset button. And I'll be honest, I had to have a few come to Jesus moments before I shifted my gear back into drive mode. Nevertheless, I am back in position. So let's chat. Have you ever put an address in your GPS and a few different options show up and you just click one of those addresses thinking that they are all the same and that whatever direction will get you to your destination? You start on your journey and you're almost to your destination, but you're met with a feeling of uneasiness, anxiety, or apprehension. Almost as if something is tugging at your arm, trying to tell you to turn around because you're headed to the wrong destination. So you finally decide to check the GPS and notice that you were off course and headed to the wrong destination. You become frustrated with yourself because had you just listened to your gut 20 miles back, had you just checked that GPS 20 miles back, you would probably almost be at the place that you were trying to get to. Nevertheless, you come to terms with the uneventful turnaround, as I would call it, and begin to get back on track and head in the right direction. Are y'all ready to weigh in? I know I am. So let's weigh in. When we make the decision to give God complete and total control over our lives or take up our cross and follow Him, we often think that the journey to purpose or promise will be a straight shot. We think that once we lose our life for Christ and save it, we will automatically obtain the promise. However, that is far from the truth. Once we give God complete and total control, we ought to prepare ourselves for a journey, a process. Speaking on my personal journey, there have been some stops, detours, and transitions along the way. Some that I have anticipated and some that I have not. I don't have everything figured out, nor do I claim to either. However, I've learned in my relationship with Jesus that just like a GPS, He wants us to keep seeking Him. Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, to keep knocking. Matthew chapter 7, verse 7 through 8, and checking back in with Him to see where is it that He might have us go or do next. Committing to our own plans and agenda, doing things our way, is like entering the address in wrong, thinking that we can get to our destination with our own address in mind, falling back into old habits that could delay our progress. But don't worry. God is going to nudge us and say, drop that baggage, that heartache, that overthinking, that second guessing yourself, back off where we left them the last time and meet me back here. We can start this thing over as many times as need be because you are going to make it. And the good thing about the GPS is that if you are still driving, it's not too late to change your direction and turn around. So I compare the GPS to being like Jesus. He will always be there to reassure us that if we are headed in the wrong direction, if we are still living and breathing, it is not too late to turn around. It is not too late to change our direction. He will be there to guide us, and He will never leave us nor forsake us. When God calls us to do something and we answer, It often requires us to sacrifice, turn around, start over, go in a different direction, or take a different path. Sometimes when we've gotten so far doing our own thing, turning around or being redirected can cause a feeling of frustration, heartache, anxiety, panic, or even fear, thinking to yourself, will I ever get there if I go this route? Because we don't know what is ahead or the time it may take to get to what is ahead, what God has for us. However, one thing that we do know is that the change in direction is necessary for us to get in alignment with what God has called us to do, with what God has for us. When we agree to the change in direction or change in our lives, we subconsciously agree to a process, a journey, a series that includes pruning, training, and testing. Because anything worth having requires a process, a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end. In order to obtain what God has for us, it requires for us to obey Him, to choose Him because He already chose us, to not ignore those nudges that we feel from Him when He's trying to get us to change directions, to not weigh our personal contingent options against God's ultimate options and think about how far we may have gotten on our own, doing our own thing, making our own decisions without constantly checking back and seeking Him. What God has for us requires sacrifice, meaning our lives, our yes, no matter what the process may be, no matter what the process may entail. Romans 12, verse 1 through 2 says, "And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all He has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind He will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship Him. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." This scripture lets us know that number one, God did what He is asking for us to do first. Number two, He will take us as is, just the way we are. Yes, your life is an acceptable sacrifice to Him, just the way it is. Unclean, unpure, He will take you however, because transformation starts once you surrender. Number three, when we look at the world and all it has to offer, that way to life more abundantly may look appealing, but don't look at the way of the world. Look at the one who has overcome the world, who holds the world in the palm of His hands. Number four, there will be a process, and there is no way around it. Transformation does not come easy. Because in order to go from glory to glory to glory and become more like Jesus, it is going to be difficult. It is going to take some struggle, okay? Some long suffering. And He lets us know that. But in the end, it is worth it. And number five, there is a predetermined ending to the process. And that is coming to know God's will for our lives, which is good and pleasing and perfect. I am here to tell you that yes, your obedience may require an uneventful turnaround. Uneventful because it may not be that exciting at the beginning. The process may be a little slow to pick up and tedious. But I have great news for you. Even the definition of the word turnaround tells us that if we do it, it will be worth it. And that there is a favorable expected end that can occur at any time when you least expect it. Turnaround means an abrupt or unexpected change, especially one that results in a more favorable situation. Before the turnaround point of our situation, things aren't always going to be rainbows and butterflies. Heck, nothing in life is rainbows and butterflies all the time. If I'm talking to some real people, things may happen along our journey that may have us second guessing ourselves, decisions, people, outcomes, etc. Scripture says that hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire comes, it is a tree of life. Sometimes when we hit a roadblock in our hope and expectations, God will give us a glimpse of our expected end during our journey to help us endure. And it is up to us to hold on to it and keep going. As stated at the beginning of this episode, the turnaround in my situation was my mindset, my thought process. If I may be honest, I had gotten to a point where I was allowing negative thoughts of what if this and what if that live rent-free in my mind. Those thoughts were developed from unfavorable circumstances, setbacks, delays, more losses than wins, and other things. I had started to allow myself to think that maybe this is as far as I'll go. Maybe I'm not as strong as I think I am. Maybe my crazy faith in God is just because I may just be crazy. I don't know. I started to get tired and focused too much on where and when that I lost sight of my why. I was focusing more on the prayers that haven't come to pass instead of the ones that have, so that they can fuel me and help me to endure. I was thinking about the support or lack thereof from friends and family, but mainly I was thinking, God, I can't do this alone anymore, and I don't want to feel like this anymore, and I'm tired, and I'm weary, and I'm a little broken, if I may be honest. I'm a little frustrated, if I may be honest. You know, I just want to lay in my bed and be alone. I'm tired. However, Jesus had to remind me that I am never alone, and I have never been alone, and that he has always been there, and he will always be there. Nonetheless, I said all of that to say, for the turnaround to occur, we must remain in position, not letting what we see and how we feel to get us off course. The uneventful things will come. The detours, the twists, the turns will happen. But we must remain steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, because our labor is not in vain. God will use everything, the good and the bad. I'm not sure what steps you need to take to get to your turnaround point, but don't let an uneventful point in your journey cause you to lose sight of your promise. Once I shifted my mindset and reminded myself of who I am, that I'm carrying heavy weight, I didn't let what it may take for me to reset or redirect deter me from getting back on track. I had to reignite my fire and the passion of my faith in God. I had to be more intentional about my alone time or prayer time with God. I had to worship when I wanted to lay in my feelings and cry. I had to start back journaling, going to God first before I ask someone else's advice. I had to start back capturing every rebellious thought that contradicted who God says that I am and who I am to become, and teach it to obey Christ. All in all, getting back into position takes work. So I understand that it may be easier to just stay where you are, but starting over may be necessary. Resetting may be necessary, and it's okay. Taking a break may be necessary, and it's okay. I'm not sure. But do whatever it takes, because you need to make it. You need to obtain whatever it is that God has set aside specifically for you. I'll leave you with this familiar passage of scripture. Habakkuk 2, verse 3. This vision is for a future time. It describes the end, and it will be fulfilled. If it seems slow in coming, wait patiently, for it will surely take place. It will not be delayed. If the vision, the promise, is not delayed, because that's what scripture says, and set to come at its proper time, because there is a time for everything under the heavens. We must stay in position to receive it. Don't lose your faith, you guys. Keep the faith. Keep believing. Keep pursuing. Keep knocking. And keep knocking. Whatever you have to do. Your time will come. Your blessing will come. Your breakthrough will come. Your miracle will come. I stand in agreement with you on that. And I know you may be feeling like, my goodness, it is taking forever. But do not grow weary. Do not grow weary. God will renew your strength. Just go to him. He'll do it. I had to go to him. I had to keep going to him so that he can change my thoughts, change my mindset, so that I could get back into position, so that I can reignite my passion. That concludes season 3, episode 3 of Heavyweight the Weigh-In podcast, the Uneventful Turnaround. I pray that you guys enjoyed this episode. I pray that it resonated with who it needed to resonate with. And I pray that you got something out of it. I will be continuing my podcast journey and episodes, and definitely keep an eye out for what will be next, what God will have me do next. But as always, stay blessed, stay safe, and stay in prayer for not only you and your family, but for all believers everywhere. Y'all have a good one. Heavyweight Armor is a clothing brand that speaks to people who believe that God is calling them to greater things. We exclude none. Whether you are unemployed, homeless, broken, sick, battling addiction, or simply at a job that you do not like, Heavyweight Armor is here to help you. Our clothing reflects the different stages of our journey to purpose, with each color representing a new milestone in the journey. With Heavyweight Armor, you can feel empowered and motivated to achieve your dreams and overcome any obstacle that may come your way.